Hi everyone, my name's Nathan. I'm a senior product marketing manager here at BigPanda. Welcome to our webinar today. Today we'll be talking about a variety of different topics. We'll be introducing some new members to BigPanda, talking about L1 automation and why it's important now, discussing agentic workflows within the context of the NOC and the L1 operator, and then introducing some new features here at BigPanda. Today, the opportunity cost is huge. Our main topic is really focused around eliminating manual toil within the context of the L1 operator. We recently did a survey of over 20 enterprise customers here at BigPanda and found that we can save up to $13.3 million in manual toil and labor costs. From an hours perspective, that's over 200,000 hours of manual toil and constantly routing, investigating, all the manual actions usually associated with L1 operators. Today, our main speaker is Toil, who recently joined BigPanda and has a lot of expertise within the L1 NOC workflow and SRE. Toil, welcome to BigPanda. Can you give us a quick background in your journey and what brought you to BigPanda today?
Hi, thank you for hosting me. So I'm Telkain, I'm the ex-co-founder and CEO of Velocity. I'm a tech in my background. I worked for several different startups along the way. The thing that's kind of like correlates all the startups that I worked for in my past is that all of them had to handle production issues and basically handle a production in front of customers. And I feel like one of the intriguing things that I've seen along the way is how can you automate these processes? How can you make it easier for organizations to excel in the way that they deploy to production and keep it up and running? Yeah, I'm very excited to be here today, and the mix between Velocity and BigPanda is exciting towards going forward with the ADR product line.
Great. I know you've recently joined. You've been super busy. I know you've been, looking into the vision, updating the roadmap, and I think most importantly, you've been talking to a lot of our customers, a lot of our prospects. What are some of the pain points you're hearing from these folks?
Yeah, so I feel like one of the amazing things that kind of like keeps coming over from multiple different customers of BigPanda is that the process of the ticket routing, the thing that basically takes the time from the moment that there is an incident until the time where the right team member, the right team is taking the incident and handle that, it's a huge toil for the organization and eventually it's a problem for them. I think that if you can give a click for the next slide, I think this is an example for something that exists in the past. Today we can have an HD discussion with someone from the outs from a different country, a different place in the world. But this was before an operator that had to connect you to someone else. And I think that with the L1 operators, there is a huge opportunity here to basically allow the use of AI in order for us to automate this process and find the right people inside the company. One of the use cases that I heard from one of BigPanda's customers is that they had an example of three incidents at the same time. Three L1 operators uh, took the control of the tickets. They communicated with three different teams, and eventually it was just one incident behind the scene. So I find that intriguing of how can we actually take this and automate the process.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. We've seen a lot of people talk about how routing is super manual. It seems like, there are common reasons, but a lot of it is around data silos. There's so much information scattered across so many different tools, and it's just hard for an L1 to access that, especially if they're new. If an incident happens, maybe you have a more experienced operator who knows how to do it. The tribal knowledge they have is not translated to somebody who's new. And then lastly, they're trying to do all this. I don't know, what would you say is an average SLA? 15 minutes, if so? That's not a lot of time. And
Yeah.
there's huge downstream effects of missing these SLAs, especially because of the manual toil that is happening within these organizations. So you talked about the cost of manual workflows. It seems like there's a large cost of escalations. I think a lot of people right now are talking about agents in so many different aspects in so many different industries. From your
Yeah.
perspective, what is an agentic workflow and what does that mean within the L1 workflow?
Yeah, so in the L1 workflow, when you onboard a new team member, basically, you allow them to learn the organization, you allow them to see what it means to operate inside the organization. Some of them have an onboarding document or a process, something that takes between 3 weeks to 6 weeks in order for someone to join. And eventually this person know how to operate inside the organization. Now, I think with the agentic workflows, we can start by mimicking the human beings inside the organization and actually let them go ahead and do these processes as if it was another team member and someone that joined the team. I think that the idea of kind of like taking the steps that we can identify without knowing what is the actual step in advance is what AI is bringing into the table. And I think that we saw the movement, we play with GPT 3.5, we play with 4.0, with O4, and all of these models, as we progress into Sonnet and Opus and GPT 5 and GPT 5.1, we see how we get the reasoning that allow us to not just answer question, but actually reason on the context that the AI is getting while we're doing this kind of investigation. And that's exciting. That's a new era for us to replace a manual processes and taking all this tribal knowledge and basically import that into the agentic workflow.
Right. So it seems like the agent is really handling a lot of the grunt work, right? It's not,
Yeah.
it's not like a simple, automation as we knew it used to be. If this happens, then take this action. Instead, it's really, I mean, there's no better word to use it. It's agentically, independently doing it, but it's very much mimicking kind of how humans would act.
I
And I think
think
that's a good transition to kind of like what your vision is, like I said, you recently joined, but I think you've been kind of like hit the ground running. Can you talk about kind of what the vision is for what you're working on today?
So I think that the concept of zero human in the loop, or something that can basically join an organization and replace some of the processes inside is amazing. I think that every organization that we're going to see in the future will eventually replace or try to improve and accelerate the different organizations inside their company. And I think that the first stage is basically the mimicking of humans. If we can basically take and observe how people interact inside the organization and what's the existing processes and just let AI do the same thing, that's going to be the first step that will be very exciting to see. And this is what we are currently at in the process. As we evolve and allow this agentic workflow to learn, to do the reinforcement learning, to get more and more data into the brain of the AI, we call this the knowledge graph or the ITKG in the case of BigPanda, we basically allow this superhuman to work 24/7 and allow investigations or detection or extra processes even when nothing is happening. And I think that the next phase of it, after we move from mimicking humans to find better ways to do the same thing 24/7, we might reimagine completely how we do operations. We have today dashboards and graphs and things that we as human beings it's easy for us to consume. Maybe as we see the models evolve, maybe the type of information that we need will be different, will align to what AI is it's easy for the AI to consume. And
Right.
and again, it's a new era for all of us, basically.
Yeah, and I think the most important part to emphasize it's really taking away the manual work, right? L1s are doing this every day, and oftentimes it's not what they want to end up doing. They want to do higher level work. They want to be engineers. They want to work on innovative projects. And really, the manual work is really not only bogging them down, but when escalations happen, it's it's really delaying the work of somebody that's higher up, like an L2, L3, or an SRE. So I think that's a really good point, and that vision really helps address at the core of it the manual work that these folks are dealing with on a day to day. So
We
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so sorry. We actually heard this from multiple different companies. They say we have such, great teams, and if we can automate the low-hanging fruits and let them focus on the real hard issues, we can take them up into, as you mentioned, the L2, the L3, and leverage the humans for the things that AI cannot solve. So I 100% agree with you on this one.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see that come to fruition very, very soon. But today we're really focused on talking about what we just recently launched, the Triage agent. And this is kind of like an active part of BigPanda today and really realization of this first step within your vision. Tal, could you talk about what the triage agent is, how it's helping L1 teams, and specifically, I think it's really important to emphasize the different sources that now we're incorporating within BigPanda AI detection and response.
Yeah, that's a fantastic subject to talk about. So I think that the storyline here is that we need to always think of what the L1 is doing every day in order to solve the problem. And if we kind of like extract the different stages, the different tools that this operator has in their work, we can see that they are searching for different incidents to correlate between them because they don't want to handle multiple incidents at the same time. They want to see if they can run, these playbooks, run books of how to operate since you already have this tribal knowledge, either written or not written inside the organization. So they know how to take some of the issues and solve that without escalating that to L2 and L3 inside the organization. I think that the idea that they can go to all the different systems inside their organization, where the ticketing system is, where the documents, the Confluence, or any other a knowledge base that they can use in order to solve the problem, is giving them the option to solve this problem, and eventually they're not just bounded to the own organization. We saw outages of multiple different companies, and that was basically some of the reasons that some of the organizations that we are working with are actually had outages. So by taking all these capabilities that I just mentioned, you are allowing the agent to go ahead and use these tools just like a human being. The agent can reason about all this context together and eventually decide what should be the next step. Now, with the idea of instead of the if else strategy that we saw before AI, now the AI can go ahead, the agentic workflow can go ahead and say, you know what? Let's see, out of all these incidents that I just saw, are they all connected? You know what? I got this ticket. Did I see a similar ticket before? If I saw this ticket before, who is the person, who is the team that already solved that? Can I just assign it to them afterwards? Can I see what they did before, maybe a year ago? But when you have only 15 minutes, you don't have the time to do all of that. So if you get this agentic workflow in BigPanda and you connect all of that and streamline that into BigPanda, that's an accelerator for every company. And I think that this mix of, the event management that BigPanda is doing with, the noise reduction, in addition to the human side of it, which we in ADR is supplying on top of that, will allow us to say, you know what, we can either resolve the issue for you or escalate it afterwards. But all these capabilities are the ones that pushing us to try to automate as much as possible from the process itself.
Right. And how is all this information presented to the L1 operator currently today within the triage agent?
That's a fantastic question. So part of the idea of doing RAG in the case of agentic workflows or allowing the agent to learn and have a memory and have the connections is what we call the IT knowledge graph or the ITKG, which is basically the knowledge base of the agent. Every time that the agent is searching for something or thinking about correlations, it goes to the ITKG. and ask these questions and find a correlation. And every time that we learn something new or investigate a new incident or see a new ticket, we basically push it into this ITKG, the brain of the agent, and it allows us to not just solve this problem now, but actually solve other problems that will come in the future. So this is us learning from every investigation that we're doing, every information that is being connected into the ADR solution. And that's something that allows us to basically extrapolate all the existing knowledge from the organization into again, the agentic brain in this case. So thank you
Yeah.
for this question.
I think that's a great point. AI detection response is really built off of the IT knowledge graph, and the IT knowledge graph is just very dynamic. It's always being updated with, if a new incident happens and somebody resolves it in some way, it's gonna be put back into the IT knowledge graph, and it's just building this, I guess, a brain essentially on how to deal with incidents, particularly within the context of the IT environment that is implemented in. So I think that's another important part to that too.
I think that the mix of having the agentic workflow, of actually going through this workflow, understanding from the context what's the right logic for us, in addition to the ability to query the brain and see what we learned up until now and what should we update according to what we investigate. That's the mix that allow us to go ahead and again accelerate the L1 operations in this case.
Right. And this unlocks all the use cases. Um, as you can see, the team of experts that you see here, and sure, more to come. Thank you to all for walking us through your vision, walking through your early stages here at BigPanda, and it's a lot of work that you've been doing, and I'm really excited to see what's in the future. But today we want to show this in action. We want to show you how this is working within BigPanda today. So I would like to introduce Kevin Wood, who is a solutions engineer here at BigPanda, who will show how these different features and capabilities are working within BigPanda AI detection response today. Kevin, off to you.
Thanks, Nathan. I'm really excited to showcase all the new good stuff in BigPanda. Let me share my screen. Now, every IT organization knows the struggle. There's incomplete information, manual validation, missteps, premature or incorrect escalations, and operators spend a lot of valuable time piecing together data from dozens of tools only to escalate incidents that are lacking important context. And not only is this experience incredibly painful for many teams, it's incredibly costly. ADR changes this. BigPanda can automatically normalize, filter, enrich, and correlate alerts across infrastructure, services, and applications to deliver a unified, full context view of incidents. And then, when an incident does occur, BigPanda will utilize a team of AI agents to gather and analyze relevant data across changes, the service desk, historical incidents, and external observability. Nathan and Tal, it's all of that context that's available through the IT knowledge graph that you were talking about. This then provides suggested next steps for any incident so that operators will have improved confidence, accelerate resolution, and reduce escalations. We'll take a closer look at this particular incident through the lens of ADR's AI-powered incident summary. Here we can see that the Triage agent has already assembled all of the relevant context. It's gathered important information and clues about what's happened, what's involved, what's impacted, and also how to resolve it. So we can see when the issue began. We can see which systems and services are impacted. And below this, we can see a root cause that has been identified, as well as suggested next steps that the operator can follow. Now, let's explore where all of this information comes from. The first component of our agentic triage is that BigPanda has gathered alerts from multiple sources. We can see here in this incident, Grafana, Splunk, Datadog, Dynatrace, Prometheus. All of these alerts from these different streams of alerts have been collected, normalized, they've been enriched and filtered, and then correlated together to produce a holistic incident. Now, we have many customers who have historically benefited from this technology. We're going to move past this, but it's still important to kind of lay the foundation of why it's important. And I'm going to ask a bigger question here. Why is event management important in the context of AI? Why can't we just throw AI at a bunch of alert streams and get all of the answers and next steps that we need? And the answer is the difference between AI that performs well, provides quality outputs and decisions, uh, to AI outputs that confidently hallucinate and give us the wrong answers and take us down the wrong track. The hard truth is that AI does not magically fix messy inputs. As much as we would love for this to be the case, we're just not there in terms of our models, not there in terms of performance. And even if we were, it'd still benefit to lay a foundation of good data before we get to that point. So let's talk through these different components of the event correlation. The first is normalization. With normalization, we have consistent fields, units, naming, severity scales, timestamps, entity IDs, etc., and therefore alerts are comparable across source, across domains. With enrichment, things like adding the business service that the storage device is associated with, we have added context. This makes the alerts more self-contained, making them document-like. That makes the LLM analysis and outputs more accurate and actionable. Then with correlation, all of these alerts correlated together, we get a timeline of related signals and better root cause versus symptom separation. And without correlation, LLMs will overweight whatever is more frequent, whatever is the noisiest, and the root cause alerts are going to get buried under all of that spam. So to summarize our event correlation functionality here in the triage agent, it lays the foundation for the rest of ADR's capabilities. Now, in addition to enriched alerts that have been correlated together, the agent's going to investigate change data to determine whether recent changes are the root cause, helping operational teams identify root causes faster. Here we can see that the agent has identified a storage policy change that was probably too restrictive, and we're getting very close to the smoking gun of this incident, if not already there. Many of our customers benefit from this, taking their MTTR down from hours to minutes just by getting to root cause more quickly. And this represents an immense value for our customers. Here's where things are going to get really interesting. Now, another agent is going to monitor the service desk. Now, historically, our NOC, our L1s, and our service desk, they might have some overlapping functionality, but really these two functions are often siloed from one another. And it's only after a few hours into an incident that the service desk is communicating to the NOC or the NOC communicating to the service desk that we have an understanding of customer impact. Now, our service desk agent has found some end user impact, and this does a couple of things. It either reinforces our current priority, or it tells us that we need to escalate the priority of this given incident, given that there is an end user impact. Now I can see at multiple levels in the stack, whether it's a DBA or an end user trying to log into an application, that there are indeed issues, and it reinforces the root cause that we've already found, and it reinforces and maybe promotes us to change the priority of this. Now, we also want to look back to find similar incidents. It's very often that we hear that our customers have repeated incidents. It may be because of lack of a good problem management identification, or it may be because of other factors. However, with BigPanda, with ADR, we're able to ingest historical incidents both from BigPanda as well as ITSM to find similar incidents that have occurred in the past, whether it's a ticket or a BigPanda incident, and not just use this to reinforce the captured organizational knowledge that operators and SMEs and everyone is inputting into the incident management process to then surface to the operators. It's then taking this to the next step and providing actions for the L1s to take in order to either elevate or route or triage the incident in the proper ways. In this case, it's telling me I need to set the priority to P1. We're going to do that here. This is great. we have kind of end-to-end visibility of a holistic incident. Everything is kind of perfect. We know what happened. We know what's the impact. We know why this occurred. In my ITSM ticket, perhaps the work notes get updated that there was a storage policy rollback or a patch, and we're done. Our operators have spent less time gathering all of this really important context in order to get to resolution as quickly as possible. Now, it's not always this clean. And this is where I want to kind of just highlight we can do a really great job with gathering all of this context, but we're still missing some pieces. Maybe our CMDB data is incomplete. Maybe our topology about our systems is under-leveraged. It's not complete. This is where our incident correlation comes into play. Now, I have a different incident here. There's a checkout page performance synthetic check running in this data center, and it represents that there is likely end user impact. And this is something that we want to respond to quickly. But it doesn't really tell us that there is or where the smoking gun is directly in our changes. We can see, there's some underlying infrastructure issue causing our incident that we're currently looking at. What may look like separate incidents, maybe across services, applications, infrastructure, they likely trace back to an underlying root cause. Maybe there was a data center problem. Maybe there is an outage from one of our vendors, and we want to explore what that is. Our agent is now investigating different incidents that are stored on the IT knowledge graph to find out what is the underlying root cause. So instead of chasing the symptom, which is what we're looking at here with our current incident, we're going to dig down into the rest of the incidents and find the true underlying root cause. As it's looking at all these different aspects, the LLM is providing the outcome that makes the most sense of what backs our APIs, what backs our applications, what ultimately would result in the synthetic check that is failing. And we're going to get down to our network here, which is exactly what our correlation analysis just provided us. If we go look at what's happened here, we can see that there's critical network congestion occurring on this core switch. And I can see that there is a likely misconfiguration from the change given in this incident. So now our L1s have these tools necessary, like previously only known maybe to an SME, an L4, someone who might not even be on call at any given moment, but this information is now given to our operations team immediately. This solves for incredibly complex IT use cases for large organizations and smaller organizations alike. But the more complex the environment, the more likely there's a chance that BigPanda can provide some immense value. So all of this context that we just reviewed, all of it is unified automatically. There's no queries, there's no cross-tool searching, no waiting on escalations. Not only have we removed noise, we've removed ambiguity from our operations teams. Now, I would pause here and just mention that all of this information data that we just explored isn't just available here in the console. BigPanda can leverage all of this information for automation, whether that's sending to runbook automation tools or ITSM or chat tools. And all of that information is then carried downstream to be used in the next step of your process. So really excited to see how our customers leverage ADR in the future.
Great. Thank you, Kevin. That was a great overview of the triage agent and the many capabilities that are available today. That wraps up our webinar today. As you can see, we're working on a lot of great things, particularly focused around automating the L1 workflow and really reducing the manual toil. I want to give a special shout out to Toil for speaking today, talking about his experience thus far, and sharing many of the things that he'll be working on in the future. Shout out to Kevin for showing us the demo, showcasing how you can use these features today within your environments and really help the L1 teams quickly validate and essentially triage the necessary incidents that go into their console. So thank you again for joining our webinar. If you have any questions or would like to learn more about what we talked about today, please visit us at bigpanda.io and fill out a demo request. We'll happily get you connected to the right folks to talk about your specific use case. So thank you again, everyone, and we hope you have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much.